All right, welcome back to day 2 of Expression Engine Conference. This is Travis Smith of Hop Studios. He's going to be talking to us about his license validation service.
All right. Morning, everyone. I was actually particularly proud of my...
Did you turn your mic?
Is there a switch?
Yeah, a little tiny one.
Hi, everyone.
There you go.
There we go. All right. That's impressive. I think every piece of technology has failed so far. Okay. I was particularly proud of the description that I wrote for this talk, so I'm just going to reread it here. With the launch of EE's new add-on store, Hop Studios decided to get serious about monitoring licenses for our add-ons. We added dynamic, that was a fancy word, license validation to each add-on. That's not true yet, by the way. We created a web service that responds to check-ins from each add-on to ensure that they are using a valid license. We'll explain how we created an API, that's a bold claim, to respond to LS Labs purchase Webhook, and also a service and a cron job, that's not even in the description, that fetches the latest licenses from devotee. So now we're lifting the veil and showing you how it all works in case you want to do the same. All right. So this is the place where you would hear that sort of record screech and the voice that goes, I bet you're wondering how I got myself into this situation. All right. This button. Okay. So let me start with what is Hop Studios. I'm going to tell you who we are and why we avoided any sort of licensing system for more than a decade and why we're doing it now. We'll do a little tour of EE history. So I'm Travis. I'm the president and the owner of Hop Studios. We're a company of about 7 people. Exactly 7 people based in Vancouver, Canada. We create and maintain websites for a lot of different clients. Most of them are social enterprises, nonprofits, people who are trying to accomplish some sort of societal good. That's what kind of gets us out of bed in the morning. We try to do good in the world by helping good organizations have really excellent websites. In trivia time, the HOP in Hop Studios stands for helping other people. So how many of you in here have been using Expression Engine for more than a decade? Raise your hands. A number of you. That's great. We also started like way back in the olden days. We were not P-machine users. We didn't manage to make it onto that small area of the Venn diagram. But yeah, the company was founded in 2004 by my former wife and I. We got divorced, but we actually still work together at Hop Studios. It's all good. Don't worry. And from the very beginning, we were an Expression Engine shop. You know, we just, as I think you said, we just kind of grokked it. It just kind of made sense to us in a way that other CMSs at the time really didn't. Movable type, crazy. Perl based. Who does stuff in Perl? So I've been a big fan of Expression Engine for a long time, and I've always supported the community. It's made a lot of things possible for me and the people who work for me. We got involved in creating add-ons the way that many of you might have. Actually, let me ask you this question. How many people here have created an add-on at some point? Right. How many people here have sold an add-on? Much smaller number. Here's the thing. I encourage you to sell your add-ons, right? It's great to give them away, and I'll get into how we actually also kind of give them away. But selling an add-on allows you to put a little bit of a price or value on the work that you do. And a community that has a bunch of add-ons for sale looks like a vibrant community of people who are doing this professionally. So don't be afraid of selling your add-ons, even if you think you're only going to make taco money. Just go for it. So we got into doing add-ons the way that a lot of you probably did. First of all, by necessity, because you had something that needs doing, and secondly, just for fun. It's kind of a thing to experiment with and try out your programming skills. Hop never created a single monster add-on like Freeform or Craft CMS. Matrix, Structure, Cartthrob. We did things a little differently. If you started doing EE sites back in EE 1.0, there were a lot of things that EE didn't do at that point. It had a strong core base, but then there were a lot of ways that could be developed, and add-ons filled those gaps. So we always made what you would call utility add-ons, things that saved us time, saved clients frustration, or they filled a gap in the functionality of EE. Our first one was, and I looked this up, something that cleaned up content that was pasted in from Microsoft Word, which was something that a lot of our clients did. Luckily, nobody says that anymore. It's still at version 1.0. I do have a list of things I want to fix about it, but haven't gotten to it yet. So we wrote this add-on, and then we announced it on the EE forums. This is kind of historical. For some of you, it's a trip down memory lane. For others, this is going to be maybe hopefully interesting. Originally, add-ons were shared just as zip files on the EE forums. People would post their add-on in the forums, and then they would support it in the forums. Here's the announcement for Word Cleaner, October 19th, 2009, almost exactly 10 years ago. This is also, it was a great place to hang out. It was the Slack of its day. And anyone who purchased Expression Engine got an account on the Expression Engine site. So the forums were a pretty good way to be in touch with the whole EE community. So because you folks have foolishly given me a microphone, I'm going to take a minute to talk about an issue that's been on my mind, not related to the talk. Here's what I have to say about EE Slack. I really like the EE Slack community, and I really like the people in it, and I like the conversation that goes on, but I have some concerns about it. First of all, it's not organized. You know, when things used to be shared on the forums or on Stack Exchange, the conversations were kind of arranged around topics. And now, you know, those topics were easier to locate and join in and participate in. And now it's just like this stream of conversation that's very difficult, even to see where to jump in, right? Like it's difficult to like go back 3 days to something that you might have something of value to add to. My second concern about it is that it's not permanent. You know, I was able to find this announcement from 10 years ago talking about this thing that I posted, and that's pretty cool. On Slack, and you know, it only goes back 10,000 messages or something like that. And in order for it to be permanent, Expression Engine would have to pay some user license, some fee per user license. I'm sure it would be way too expensive for them. Like I'm not saying that they can switch to that, but it's just a problem with Slack. So we can't go back and see why conversation decisions were made the way they were. You know, even Twitter at least is historical. You can go back and see someone's old posts on a topic. So that's a shame. And then the third concern I have with Slack is that it's not open and findable by people who aren't us, right? You know, people often start looking in Google. You know, they often might stumble across a community and then join in. But with Slack, you know, everything's happening behind this closed wall because it's not on Google, and it basically doesn't exist on the web. So that's my concern there. I think that it's a great welcoming community, and I would love to have more people participate in it. I wish that everybody who downloaded Expression Engine also got like a really active prompt to like join the Slack community. It's the best, like right in Expression Engine, because as it is right now, I feel like this group is not in touch with the larger group of people who are using this tool. So there you go. That's my thoughts about that. I don't expect that we're going to switch away from Slack. I just find it a little bit unfortunate that that's kind of where things landed. And I will also say, please jump in at any point if you have questions, concerns, if you think I'm off base. I have time. All right, so that's that. What happened next? So we did Hop Deploy Helper. This is our biggest add-on. It came quite early. It's still our top download, but Hop Introvert is catching up. Hop Deploy Helper offered a way to change all of the server-specific settings in Expression Engine from one screen. And I mean all of them. So like, you know, channel paths, file upload paths, the path where the smileys and emoticons are, that were on all these different screens. This was one, so Hop Deploy Helper put it all on one screen. It's less necessary now because people are doing things more in the config file, and because you have the ability to use base URL and base path, and then use those throughout. But at the time, it was pretty important, and it's still great for troubleshooting because you can see everything in one page, and it's good for simple deployment. I don't know if you can make that out, but this is what it looks like. We are still actively developing it. We added the ability to store revisions in Expression Engine's revision table. Again, slight tangent here. So Expression Engine has a database table called EXP revisions that is used for entries, but it's also used by one or two other add-ons. And in general, it's just a table that you can save revisioned data to. So if you have an add-on that stores settings that might change over time, I highly encourage you to take a look at the EXP revisions table and how it's used to create an easy versioning system for your own add-on that is it works really well. So and it's for deploy helper. It's especially handy, not just to be able to roll back and switch back to your old settings, but to see who changed it, so that you can yell at them. I tried to do cool effect. This is hop deploy helper, and it has all the boxes for the paths. So then Devotee came along. Devotee launched on May 1st of 2009, 10 years ago, as a place that collected and organized all of the Expression Engine add-ons in the world. Super amazing resource. They gathered all of the add-ons that were in the forums, and I think now, last time I looked, I think there's 2,300 add-ons on Devotee, or 2,300. I don't actually know their specific, like how it's broken down, but they have 2,300 entries. So quite the resource. So we started making our add-ons available there, starting of course with our ones that were for free. Devotee, when it first launched, did not have a way to buy add-ons. It was just a directory of add-ons. But once you could start selling add-ons on Devotee, we started experimenting with various price levels, from free up to, I don't remember what, $50, $60. When someone bought one of our add-ons on Devotee, you'd get an email. Oh, let me ask another question. How many people here have bought an add-on on Devotee? Everybody raise your hand. How many here have sold an add-on on Devotee? Yeah, some folks. So when you purchase an add-on on Devotee, an email gets sent to the developer that includes all sorts of your purchase information. And it still happens that way. Then, about 90 days later, or less, depending on how quickly your pool of money accumulates, you get a check. So, we'd get an email, and then a couple of weeks later, we get a check, and then we would go buy tacos. That email also included a license key assigned to the add-on that was just sold. And I was like, how do they know what our license key is? But basically, Devotee just generates one and assigns it to that particular purchase. Some other add-ons that other developers did would often have a field in their settings where you could put that license number in. But in my examination of it, it didn't do anything. It just stored the license number there in a handy way. Well, you could also just store it in your email or in your documentation for that client. There's no real reason to do it. And many times when we would go take over a site from another, maintenance contracts would change or something like that, we would find these license fields empty, even though people had bought licenses and so forth. So because of this, we never really built anything license related to our add-ons. It didn't seem to be worth it, and there was no example of people doing it in a way that made sense to me, right? Like, I didn't really see the point. Do more add-ons. I don't want to make this into a Hop Studios add-ons talk, but I will say that Edit This is the one that our clients love all the time, and it's super cheap, and it just puts a little edit pencil on the entry that takes you to that entry in the control panel, which clients really love. So there you go. And I wish that the conference was a little earlier, because Hop Privateer changes your website into pirate speak automatically on September 19th. Not one of our top sellers, but but super cool. So then GitHub came along. You have this rise of cloud-based code repositories that became more and more popular for version control and for dissemination of free and open source add-ons. And we decided to move all of Hop's add-ons to GitHub for 4 reasons. One was that for our free add-ons, we just wanted to make them more broadly available. So yeah, there you go. For our add-ons that were commercial and paid, GitHub allowed us to easily offer sort of a try before you buy mechanism, because you couldn't download commercial add-ons from Devotee before paying for them. But we wanted people to be able to try Hop Privateer before they shelled out nothing. Well, that one's a free one. Edit This, we wanted them to be able to try Edit This before they had to open up their wallet. Same thing with the EE add-on store, which I'll get to in a second. They don't have a try before you buy. So we just put them on GitHub. For both of the add-on types, we wanted to publish it so that the community would be able to submit their own pull requests, fix all our bugs for us, add new features to our add-ons. Obviously, this happened all the time. No, it did not. And then the last reason we wanted to put all our stuff on GitHub was we wanted to show off our coding skills, and also to give back to the community examples of code that we thought was written well, so that just chunks of code that they might be able to use in their own add-ons. Kind of like the reason I'm doing this talk is to sort of share like our licensing experience, and hopefully other people can benefit from it and do their own similar thing. So that was all good, GitHub. Then there was Mountie, and I mentioned Mountie because of its licensing specifically. Mountie was a kind of a cool Mac app that was built by this lone developer named Patrick, who has now gone on to a better place. He works at Apple. He built Mountie as a Mac app that was it made Expression Engine's template system into a mountable drive. So you would have a drive that was your site, and all you needed was a login. You didn't need FTP access or file level access, but it created this file structure that you could then edit, compare, use your local text editor or whatever. It's a pretty cool app. So when he decided to focus on iPhone, foolishly decided to focus on iPhone development, instead of Expression Engine, we bought the code base from him and took it over. But we had, one of the most difficult parts of Mountie was not the functionality of it, which was awkward but doable, but the licensing functionality was actually super frustrating. It used sort of a PayPal gateway thing and a licensing library called Aquatic, and it was very difficult and fragile, and it was kind of a mess. And it really kind of pushed us away from considering licensing for other things, just because this one was so problematic. It also was a mess because it kind of is a two-part beast. It had a licensing system in the Mac app, and it also had a licensing system in the Expression Engine add-on that spoke to the Mac app, and you had to do both. And I won't tell you how much time we spent on that part, except I think that it showed me that licensing can be really difficult, and kind of kept us from pursuing that for quite a while. So, whatever. That's not it. So then, this is just a screenshot from Mountie, but I'm going to skip it. So then Expression Engine 3 came out. We had to redo all our add-ons, but that was fun. And then Expression Engine 4. Add-ons got a little bit more complex to build. They weren't as easy as just throwing together a plugin. However, they got easier to install, and they had a more they had an easier way to do an interface for the control panel, and they had an easier way to store settings, and all those things made licensing a little bit more possible. And then EE Harbor. So I'm obviously fast forwarding quite a bit, but EE Harbor came out with a good way to both, a way that I thought was good both to require licenses and also to notify folks about upgrades, and those two things were kind of tied together. And I just want to call attention to that because I think that if you're looking for an example of licensing done right, EE Harbor is probably a good place to start looking. And we thought to ourselves, it'd be cool if we did that license thing ourselves, but we still never got around to it. Yeah, I was going to say, so, wait, So I'm going to totally acknowledge that the licensing stuff that we did is based on the EE Harbor stuff. Steve Jobs has this quote that I like a lot, and I wanted to talk about for a quick second, because I think it's kind of misunderstood, it's kind of glib. But basically, what he's saying here is that a good artist might copy something from somebody else, but it can still clearly be seen as belonging to that person. Whereas a great artist takes the ideas that are inspirational and then manage to make it into something that's their own. So I'm hoping that what we've done is a little bit like that, and if not, then maybe we can chat later. So we'll go on about that. So then then Ellis Lab announced the EE add-on store, which was about 6 months ago now. Is that about right-ish? And I feel like that finally gave Hop Studios the push we needed to build our own licensing system, because now it's going to be really complicated. Now we're going to have to talk to 2 different stores and 2 different licensing systems. And we finally were like, okay, we're just going to do this. So without further ado, here's how the Hop Studios licensing system works. So there's 3 parts. First of all, we have code in each add-on that checks to make sure your license is valid. That part's pretty straightforward. Secondly, you got a server that responds to the license checks. Little bit more complex on that one. And then the third part is that you've got a server that records the new licenses as they get created. And that part is the most complicated. It's also the same server, but certainly we can split it up for when the license checking becomes astronomically huge. So first of all, there's code in each add-on that checks for a license. There we go. The add-on checks for a license in its own database settings, right? So whenever we run a license check, we just look to see, does this add-on think that it is properly licensed? And if it says yes, it's valid, and if not, it's not. And you can look at deploy helper to see an example of this. The actual function is simply check license valid, look in the settings. If it's not empty, see if it says valid license. Otherwise, return false. And can I also say, honestly, there's nothing. I have not done something as intimidating as showing some code in front of this group in a long time. So please, don't tell me it's wrong. Here's the payoff for coming to my talk today, this morning at 9 a.m. If you want to use Hop Studios without a license, just change return false to return true. Every validation scheme in some way comes down to that, right? So frankly, if you want to do that, we can't stop you. It doesn't mean that every time we release an update, you'll have to go and edit that particular bit of code. But that's the way it is. We also, we publish our add-ons on GitHub so that people have access to them. Certainly there's hopefully there's some honor among this group about supporting each other. So that's the license check. And this is skipping ahead to the server part that responds to the checks. When you type in your license key and hit save, it checks via curl with the Hop Studios license server to see if that license key is valid. And if it is, then it stores that setting in the database. And so it really only needs to check if the license is, so check license valid is internal. Do I have a valid license? But checking us to see if the license is valid only needs to happen when you are updating and saving that license key, right? Because if you haven't changed the license key, the chances are very slim that that license has suddenly started working or even suddenly stopped working. I'll talk about that in a second. The actual times that it goes and checks the license against us are very limited. I will say, what are some things we can do here in the future? We could add a timer so that it rechecks the license validity every 30 days or something like that, or 2 hours or something. But I don't see any reason to do that. Right now, we don't expire our licenses in any way. You might not be able to download a new one, but the license that you have is going to just stay valid for that thing for a long time. We could collect more information. And again, this is not this particular function, but when it checks us, we could collect more information about the add-on or the install or the system and so forth. But for right now, we're certainly going to stay on the proper side of privacy. And as far as license checking goes, we just want to know, is this license valid? That's it. We could add something in our code that blocks the add-on from functioning in some way. Again, on a timer, like for a free trial, or portions of the add-on. But again, for us, we make all this stuff available on GitHub anyways. It's pretty unlikely that somebody is going to use the add-on without having the license, I think. And then, I'm going to skip that last one. So the license check itself looks like this. License Hub, inside the code, licensehubstudios.com, check, hop deploy helper taco 1. So, first of all, you got the server, check, that's what it's doing. Talk001, that's the license number. And then hop deploy helper. Okay, so that's because my developer, Gil, is really, really smart. And he realized that you could just buy one license for one Hop Studios add-on and then use it for every single add-on. And if you didn't pass the URL title or an identifier for which add-on it was, then you could just use it for every add-on. So Gil's pretty smart. I'm going to mention him. He makes mean kimchi and he knits rad scarves, and both of those things are from the bio on the Hop Studios websites. He actually wanted to be here today to be able to do this presentation, but he was busy with another huge client task. And if you have feedback about the code 2 pages before, I know who you should contact. You should contact Gil. He would like to get your feedback. So there you go. So you run the license check. In the template for check, this is the code. It's very complicated. Basically, it says, if you've passed in an SKU and a license, then we're going to check to see if it's valid. If you don't, then it's a 404. If it's invalid, it returns a 403, 406, the one that says something about validity. But basically, it doesn't return a 200. And it also returns, it either returns the word valid or invalid. So there you go. No, sorry, it doesn't. It was going to return a different code. It returns a 200 code for valid or invalid, because that is a correct web transaction, and then the other ones are 404s. Sorry. We also keep a log for a short time. I think it's a day, maybe 2 days, of all the checks and the IP addresses, so that we can analyze them for if there's a problem or if there's some sort of bot attack or who knows what. But we discard that regularly, so we don't keep a record of any of the checks. We do keep a record of the IP address of valid license matches. Let me read this carefully here. We do keep a longer record of what IPs a valid license is checked from, so that we can look for abuse, valid licenses that are used over and over from multiple sources. If a license is being used more than a certain number of times, we get an email that tells us that it is being widely used, and then we can decide what to do about it. And we might also add an automatic shutoff in the future, but for right now, we haven't encountered piracy or license sharing in a big enough way to make it something that needs to be automated. So you go. That's pretty straightforward. The A part, super straightforward, thanks to the way that Expression Engine has made add-ons pretty easy to do this for. And then the server checking is also pretty straightforward. So there we go. So let's talk about the harder part, the server that fetches and records new licenses. This is the part that took the most work, and it's still in the early stages. First of all, Devotee and the add-on store work in completely opposite ways. Great, so we got to handle that. The add-on store uses a webhook system, and Devotee has an API for checking licenses, and we'll talk about Devotee first. Devotee has a really good API to fetch order information. It's at devotee.com/sell/orders.api. I think I have that URL on the next slide. It gives you, and this is pretty small to see, but this is all the response fields you get when you ask for You can ask for a date range, and it'll give you all the orders that happened within that date range for you. And it gives you the license key, the product, the date of the purchase, the price paid, what the internal order number is, the customer name, the customer email, the customer company, the customer ID in Devotee's database so you can match sales over time. And it all comes back in JSON format. And for the security of this, all you need is your API key from the Devotee member page and the secret key, which are right there. If you go to devotee/member, you'll see yourself, and you can just grab the numbers from there. So for our initial purposes, we built an MVP function to use the API to get the licenses. Who knows what MVP is? A couple people? Cool. Nice. Hopefully I know what you know. MVP is the minimum viable product. Basically, what you need to get this out the door on day one without anything fancy. You're like, okay, for this actually to be a thing that's working, how bare bones can it be? So we built this MVP function to fetch stuff from Devotee. And when I say it's the minimum viable product or process in this case, it is still fairly complicated. So when you put in a license number and save it, it checks our database. And if it doesn't find the license as a check, if it doesn't find a match there, then it does one other thing, which is it triggers a call to the Devotee API at that exact moment, and it fetches the latest orders from there. And if it finds any, then it puts those in the database, and then it reruns the license check. And this is because we can't know for sure that our license database is the most up-to-date database. Somebody might have bought something from Devotee 10 minutes ago, immediately put the license into the settings, and we need to somehow have that in our system. So it can be a long process. When I say long process, I don't think we ever had it take more than 15 seconds or something like that. But it does, there is this additional step that has to happen because Devotee doesn't let you know about licenses other than by sending an email. And I don't even know if the email comes, how quickly that comes. An email can get hung up in places and things like that. So that is the minimum viable process for that. If it doesn't match the second time, then at that point we can safely assume that it's not a valid license, and then we tell the add-on, invalid, and the add-on saves it as not valid, and then the person gets a message that says, hey, it's not valid. Does this mean that we are hammering away at the Devotee system? No, because A, we don't sell that many licenses so far. And even still, it would only hit Devotee if an invalid license was entered. And most of the time, people put in if you're going to bother typing something into the license settings box, you're probably going to type in something you think is the right license. Most people try to put no one's trying to guess at licenses for hop edit this. Stop it. And also, we have a daily cron job. So every day we fetch the licenses from Devotee for the previous day. So it's not like we're going to be checking for missing licenses all the time. In the future, we might also set up an email-based trigger so that when we get the email from Devotee, we trigger the fetch for the license at that moment, and then it would probably have an even smaller effect on Devotee. So there's lots of ways to minimize the load and lots of things that we can do in the future, so I'm not too worried about it. The EE store, meanwhile, doesn't have an API at all. Instead, it has a webhook, sometimes called a web callback. Because of who you are, I figured you all knew APIs. How many people have worked with webhooks before? Fairly? Okay, great. So a webhook, it's kind of like a regular EE hook. Basically, it's triggered when a function or a certain part of a process is hit. In LS Labs, in Expression Engine's case, when this purchase is made, it triggers a call to a URL that you put in there and specify, and then it submits a predefined payload as a post to that URL. And again, I wish it was a little bigger. I think it's a little bigger on the next screen. Yes. So basically, the webhook URL that we've provided has our ACT number and a vendor ID that we've specified. So it's as secure as I can think of to make this something that you can't just stuff the post office box with your own license numbers. So our own license add-on is standing by at that action ID, at that act URL, and it creates a license record, and we're good to go. So take a, does this have a laser pointer? Wow. Okay, so those are the things that, I'm easily impressed. Those are the things that the EE add-on store gives you. It's these 5 items. There's a couple problems I have with the way that the EE add-on store works. First of all, there's no confirmation, error reporting, or retry of the webhook that I know of. Could be wrong on the retry thing, haven't seen it. I'm not sure if it caches requests if they can't go through. Like I'm not sure exactly if the trigger is asynchronous or not. But basically, I think that this webhook, as it exists right now, is a little fragile, right? It might also be robust. I don't know the details. They haven't published the details. And I haven't seen that many problems, but I have seen a few, enough to make me think that it is a bit of a fragile process. So, okay, that's one problem. Secondly, if your server misses the webhook call for whatever reason, because your web server's down or the internet tubes are clogged or whatever, there's no API that they've given us to look up licenses automatically, and there's no way to trigger that webhook function again, either singly or in bulk. So you have to dig in and do it manually if a license is missed. And how do you know if a license is missed, right? If somebody puts in a license number that they think is accurate, but the webhook has missed, we haven't built it to notify us everybody tries a bad license number, because I think that would be possibly quite overwhelming, or at least pretty inefficient, because most license mistakes are going to be typos or people just putting something random in there, not because a webhook has failed. So that's, the fact, this is a little bit of no fun. That was my note here, no fun. Here's another bonus reason for coming to this talk. There is a report page that LS Lab is working on. I don't think that they have released it yet. This gives you a report of all the licenses that you've sold, and it also shows you the revenue on them. It doesn't show you the sales price, but that's okay. I think it'd be really nice if on this screen you could re-trigger the webhook, and go, just like have that webhook fire off again. Even, either in bulk, you could select a bunch of them, or even just one at a time. There's more problems though. And by the way, I should say, I bring these things up to hopefully get them corrected, because I have a microphone right now, not because I'm not impressed and excited about the EE add-on store. The EE add-on store was cool enough to get us to build a licensing system, right? So I think that it's going to be, that's pretty cool. But I just wanted to point out some things that we noticed as we were going through this process of actually working with it. So Expression Engine doesn't give you any details about the purchaser, either on this report page or in the webhook. Basically, you get the license number that they've generated. Okay, you get the SKU, which is also the name and also the URL title of your add-on, and all those things are basically, those are just aliases for the same information, basically. It gives you the date of the purchase, which is also probably the exact moment of the webhook, so that's not even really new data. And that's all they give you. It's frustrating. I have tried to talk to LS Lab, and they've told me that they think that they can't give any more information to us because of GDPR. But I know that's not correct. It's their position, but my understanding of GDPR is probably equally fuzzy as theirs. And from my understanding of it, there are certainly ways that you can arrange to have information about purchases shared between between a vendor and a subcontractor, or a service provider and an agent. There are ways that this problem has been addressed by lots of organizations. At the very least, I feel like they should be able to give us the purchase price. That would be a piece of information you could pass along. That's not personally identifying information. That's just additional information about this transaction compared to another transaction, so that if you have changed the price of your add-on over time, you would be able in your own database to say, here are the sales that were happening at $10. Here are the sales that were happening at $5, right? But they won't pass that information along. Seems like something they could do. Anyways. And then 4, I'm just going to complain about Stripe for a second. This is the thing that drives me crazy. The only receipt that we get from Stripe is this, which doesn't really link back with a time or an order number or a way to identify which purchase happened on your site. And in cases, you think, okay, in some cases it makes sense. But in several cases, we have had the experience where somebody has bought 5 licenses all in a row for 5 clients within 10 minutes. It becomes very hard to identify which receipt goes to which transaction, and if any of the transaction failed, or whatever. It would just be nice if the Stripe email receipt gave you a better way to audit what's going on. Whatever, that one's a smaller problem. So in summary, somebody purchases from the Addons store, that purchase triggers this webhook call, that adds the license to our server instantly, and we're good to go. In many ways, that's a better model than, I point these things out, but it's a better model than devotee because you don't have to do as much coding. So, and then there's one more thing. There's the debugging tool that we built, which is anything that hits that action hook that doesn't result in a license properly being entered, we track it. We just gather all the information and put it into a debugging log, so that because this webhook is a pretty open endpoint, we capture anything there, and then that way, if someone's trying to attack it, we can get information about it, or if the EE store changes the way that their information is bundled or posted, we would immediately start gathering that and could respond to it. And it's really good for being able to debug. So that's another thing that's part of our license server functionality. So, all right, so then there's one more thing to show you, which is the actual license server, the license server functionality itself, which we built in WordPress. No, just kidding. We actually, well, I'm going to skip that. It's not that funny a joke. I was going to say it was all done in Perl from a FileMaker database, which is how I built my first website, and that was pretty exciting. But no, we didn't do it that way either. So it's running Expression Engine, and we have one channel. Okay, technically we have 2 channels because we have another channel that gathers the unknown hits to the action point. But basically, this server has one channel, which has some fields about the license. The title is auto-generated. The add-on name comes from the web load. Same with the license and the SKU. This is notes if we want to write details about interactions we've had with that client. Status and author, that's pretty straightforward. The purchase itself, we call it member name instead of purchaser name because I think that's how it is identified at devotee. And we keep track of which vendor it was bought from. We have 3 right now, EE Store, devotee, and internal, if we just want to generate a license internally. And the purchase date, that is obvious. The purchased price, that's obvious. Data received, this is the JSON that comes either from devotee or from the add-on store, so that we can compare this to the details. But maybe I should move that to another screen because it's more for debugging than for this. Purchaser, company, email, address, and phone. That's what you can get from devotee. This is future growth. At some point, we might want to start recording what version of EE or what version of the add-on it's coming from. I know that with other people who do licenses, they only allow it to work from certain domains, like a live domain and a dev domain. So we have those fields. We don't use them yet. And then down here, this is the number of this is where we keep track of requests against this license key from what IP address, and we only keep the last ping. So if somebody saves it 3 times, we don't care. We just want to know what the last one was. And the status. Don't remember what status was for. I think it provides a way for us to shut down. I think if we change it to inactive, then it will not be overwritten by another request that comes in, and it will return invalid. So we can inactivate requests based on IP if we wanted to shut down a particular IP, as opposed to shutting down the entire license. Right? We'd be able to disable one particular one. I think that's what that's for. As I say, this part was honestly, like the data model around licensing started out with like, oh, we just have to record the license. That's going to be the easy part. This was actually kind of the most complicated part because the how you structure and organize the data influences how you're going to be able to use that data, right? It's so that took a lot of thinking. Okay, what's next for Hop License? I'm going to be taking questions soon, so you might want to start thinking about that. As you can see, there's definitely some room for growth in here, some stuff that we've built in already for growth and stuff that we're just thinking about. We have bigger plans. We're probably going to add a customer registration system so that you can register on Hop Studios and then link up the licenses you have all into one account. And then you'd be able to have a page that has a report of like what your licenses are and who they're assigned to. We can do that with devotee already because we get a customer number. We just haven't bothered building it because I'm hoping that the EE add-on store will change its policies about information from users, and then we can build it a different way. We also want to build an easier way for us to generate internal licenses for our own clients. Right now it is entirely a manual process and not even that well documented, but it would be nice to just have a list of our add-ons and a button we can press that says, give me a license for this client. And then it would like send them an email. That'd be pretty cool. I should build that. We also want to create reports about income and usage so that we can see like what add-ons are generating the most revenue over time and export to Excel and stuff like that. We want to create an automatic email reminder system once we get the customer registration system so that we can send out an email on the day that your license is expired, so you can't update it anymore. We will remind you and say, hey, did you want to get a new license for the next year? We don't disable any of our licenses, but we don't allow people to continually get the latest updates of our license. I think it's a year, and then you have to buy a new license. We also want to add version checking in, the way that EE Harbor does, as a separate silo, where the add-ons will check in and see what version they are and see if there's a new version so that you're notified within the control panel that it's time for you to update and get rid of those bugs and get better security and new features and all that sort of thing. I really like the way that EE Harbor does that. So there you go. That's what we have in place currently. We're at kind of the end here, and I have two things to ask you. For one thing, if you're interested in adding license checking to your own add-ons, at this point, having gone through it myself and solved it, it's complex, but it's doable, and I think that it adds a layer, not just of professionalism and to create a certain influence or impression on the people who are using it, but it also gives you a channel of communication with the people who are using your add-ons that I think is extremely valuable. So I would totally recommend that you do it, and feel free to use our code, right? I'm open to suggestions and modifications. I feel like the license server part of it is a little hard to make generic because different firms are going to have different business rules and needs around what they want to do and capture with their licensing. So that's why we haven't shared that. It's simply because I think to really productize it is more complex than I'm willing to take on, but I'm also very willing to share the code with people. I just don't want to publish it. So come and ask me about that. And the second thing is if you have an add-on that you want license checking added to, but you don't have time and you don't want to handle it yourself, come talk to me. And with that, let's find out what questions and thoughts you have. Yes?
How much time do you think you spent putting that system together? That's the main reason I haven't dove into it yet.
Can you...
how much development effort? 40 hours, 120 hours? How much time do you think?
It's tough because certainly I don't think that I approached it as an organized project. We kind of picked it up and dropped it again. And I also feel like a lot of the process was spent in discovery. I didn't have this presentation to go by, and if I had this presentation, I think it would have probably halved the time, right? So I would say it would be honestly, only 2 or 3 hours to modify the add-on to do the licensing stuff, and then to set up a licensing server and do the checking. If I gave you the code and then you were modifying fields and the process and that sort of thing, that would probably be another 10 to 20 hours. Like it would go pretty quick, right? Because I mean, even with EE now, you can export a channel. I can send, So from that point of view, it's not going to be that hard. But I will tell you, we spent double to a little more than that amount of time on it. And part of that also is just deciding, like, how do we want this to look? How do we, what is there anything we want to do different with our settings screen or things like that? So that's my estimate is probably a little small if you are really if you're really going to make it your own, and probably dead on if you're just going to do what we've done and see if it works. Yeah. Yes.
One of the reasons that we built ours was just to kind of keep the honest people honest. And I know you said the income and usage reports are coming soon, but since you implemented this, have you seen an uptick in sales? Do you think it's increased the amount of people that forget to buy licenses?
Yes, I have seen an increase in sales. I'll be quite honest. We do not sell a lot of add-ons. We have a bunch of add-ons. It is not in any way a sustaining. I shouldn't say sustainable. It's not a sustaining part of our business the way it is for other orgs. And I think that there might be other reasons. The reason I hesitate is that there might be other reasons that our add-on sales have picked up over the past couple of months since we've done this. But I do think that it is definitely a factor. It's certainly, let me say that, it has in no way slowed down the adoption of our add-ons, right? Like there's been no effect on people using our add-ons. So yeah, I would say it helps. That's it? Any other, one more? No? If you have any other questions, I'll be right over here. Thank you very much.